This is Don Bowers, and welcome to my video on the Smith & Wesson M&P series. I want to talk a little bit about guns I carry and why. So I carry primarily for two reasons. One, obviously for personal self-defense. So I carry outside the home and I carry daily. And I want to also make sure that I have a weapon that I can use for home defense. And really those are, they can be really two different weapons. So I want to talk a little bit about the some of the weapons I carry and why. And as we start, I just want to make the disclaimer. I've had probably about, I think, 14 different handguns, been carrying about 17 years. And I'll be honest, I'm not an expert. I'm still figuring things out. Things change as I go. I've got like many of you, a bucket full of holsters. Some I found over the years work really well. Some I'm finding brand new hybrids that I really like. Some of the guns I've owned, my first weapon was a 38 Special by Taurus. I still have that weapon. Great weapon, great wheel gun. I've had a couple of 22s. I've had a Jimenez, which is just kind of a little knockoff. I've had a Phoenix Arms, a little bit heavy but worked great. I've had a High Point 9mm. That was probably my first semi-auto gun, was the High Point. I've had a Springfield XD, one of the original ones. I have had a Keltec 9mm Beretta PX4 Storm in a 40. I've had a Ruger SR9C, great shooting gun. I loved it. The only reason I really got rid of that particular gun was I didn't need two guns of the same size, and the wife, tells me, how many guns do you need? And that's different than how many guns do I want. So I got rid of that and got some other stuff. I've had a Glock 42, nice shooting little gun. I would probably have another one if I had the occasion. I've had a Bodyguard by Smith & Wesson. That's also a great little gun, reliable. The problem with the Bodyguard was it was a little bit tough to shoot because it was so small. Kicked like a mule. I remember taking my son, who's a pretty big guy, out to the range, and he shot that Bodyguard. He said, "Man, Dad, this is a great gun, but this is no fun. This is tough to shoot." But if you want a pocket pistol, and I don't recommend putting pocket pistols in pockets, I recommend putting them in holsters. Great gun, but I wanted something a little bit different, a little bit easier to shoot and show. So I want to tell you guys, out of all those guns, why I settled on what I settled on. I'm actually quite comfortable with them. I'm now in the process of making certain modifications to the 3 or 4 guns that I have because they're great concealed carry. So stay tuned and find out what I'm carrying and why. As I've already indicated, I carry primarily for two reasons. One, for personal self-defense, and two, for home defense. I believe that everybody should have in their collection at least one wheel gun, as in a revolver. There's a lot of reasons for this. My first concealed carry was my Taurus 38 Special. It's really all I knew, and I was comfortable with it. So the first reason is almost everybody can become pretty comfortable with a wheel gun right out of the box. They don't require a lot of training. I mean, really, you just pull the hammer back and shoot the weapon, or you just pull the trigger. This one happens to be a Charter Arms Pug. It's chambered in 357, and of course it will also shoot 38 plus P. This is the gun I carry, if I'm going to go out in the woods. If I'm going to go on a quick trip, maybe I'm going to fly, I might throw this gun in my bag and check it at TSA. I have carried this in numerous times when I travel. Sometimes if I'm not going to carry while I'm out because I can't for whatever reason, this gun would be in my hotel room, locked up, of course, when I'm not there. But when I am there, the gun is out on my nightstand. It is a great self-defense weapon. This is one of those weapons that if one of my children were to call and say, "Dad, I need a gun real quick. I'm house sitting and I'm just not comfortable," this is the gun I would give them, especially my daughter, because she's not as familiar with handguns as my sons are. They probably wouldn't ask because they probably have their own. But point being, if I'm going to give this to a relative for a quick self-defense, this is the gun I would get. And so I recommend having at least one wheel gun. I have two. I still have my 38 Special. I'll probably never get rid of that gun. Right now, my one of my children has it, and when it comes back home, my wife is probably going to be the one that lays claim to that particular weapon. So I keep this one around as well. Now, with respect to home defense, the gun I usually use for home defense is probably going to be this little guy right here. This is an M&P M2.0 compact. Now, this gun comes in both a 3.6 and a 4-inch barrel. It's only a 1/4 inch smaller than its full-size brother, the M.2. This is the M.2 compact. This is one of those guns, when I saw it at the gun store, I said, boy, I've got to have one of those. That is the coolest thing ever. This is a direct competitor to the Glock 19. I'm not going to disparage Glocks. They're great weapons. This just happens to be the one I chose. I looked at the Glock Gen 5 at the time. I like this a lot better. I have fitted this, since this is my nightstand gun, and not that it always stays in the nightstand, but I have fitted it with an Olight light attachment, and this thing is bright. I get about 400 lumens out of it. There it is right there. I mean, it's a very bright light. It will light my house up with no problem at all. I also have a set of True Glow tritium night sights. Now, I'd never had night sights on a weapon, and I'll be honest with you, I thought, well, maybe I'll get that for Christmas and see what it's like. And I remember after I had them installed, I was sitting in my office, the lights were down low, probably had the lights down for about 15 minutes, so my eyes had adjusted. I looked over and saw these 3 bright dots across the room, and I thought, that can't be those night sights. And it is. If you ever have to wake up in the middle of the night and acquire a target when it's dark, these sights are absolutely amazing. That, of course, with the light, make this a really great home defense weapon. Just a little bit about home defense. It's my belief that if you're going to have a weapon for home defense, you need to have access to the weapon at all times. I was in my house one day in another town not too far from here, and I was in the living room, and a guy just walked into my house just out of the blue, and I did not have my weapon handy. Now, I was able to kind of get up in the guy's grill and kind of, so I could kind of control his hands, and I could have pushed him right back out the door if I needed to. I was able to back him out of the door, and then the guy went around the front of the house and headed towards the backyard. Well, then, of course, I reached around, grabbed my weapon. My safe was actually there, and it was actually open. Met him at my back door with my weapon. I did not draw the weapon on him. I was on the phone to 911. I got him out of the backyard. Police came, showed up. I met him in the front yard, and I was armed. So police asked me to put the weapon on the grass. I did so, and they took the guy into custody and got him the help he needed. He was obviously mentally disturbed. Otherwise, why would he just walk in my house? But I realized that if anything happens in your house and you've got a weapon that you're keeping in your house for home protection, you need to have access to that weapon. So it has then since been my practice that when I'm at home, I'm carrying a weapon. No matter what, unless I'm in my office, I'm not going back upstairs, I might unholster the weapon and put it on my desk. Or I might do that early in the evening, but if I get up to go downstairs, I'm going to have that weapon on me. I realize that if you need a weapon for home defense, you're never going to know when you need it. You can't anticipate. A shotgun behind the door, while it's a great weapon to have as a personal defense weapon, it may not be within reach when you need it. So it's been my custom now, and my wife and kids have become very accustomed to me carrying 24/7. I'm carrying at home, whether I'm relaxing at a table, or whether I'm sitting in my easy chair, or I'm down in my office. I'm usually carrying a weapon, and this a lot of times will be my weapon of choice because it has the light, because it has night sights, because it has 15 rounds that come for the weapon, and I have another magazine that has 17, and yes, I know this is loaded, but it does extend the handle out a little bit, not much. This is a full 17 round mag, and I have two magazines of each size. So let me go ahead and unload that, and again, there's no round in the weapon. Now, Smith & Wessons do have a little bit of a trigger pull. Some people like them, some don't. If you pull the trigger back, you're going to hit a wall. In this particular weapon, once you hit the wall, it's pretty crisp shot from there. It's not, and there's not a long reset to the weapon. So again, I like the weapon. I highly recommend it. It's actually one of my favorite. If I'm going to carry this, a lot of times I'll carry this in the day time when I'm at work. If I'm in a situation where I need to, where I want a little bit more firepower, this will be my go-to weapon. And the O-light just comes right off. I highly recommend having a light on attachment for a weapon that you're going to use for home defense, because if you're going to use it, good chance it's going to be at night when it's dark. So this is one of my go-to weapons. The next one, and these aren't in any particular order, is my lightweight. So as I've indicated before, I've had a bodyguard, I've had a Glock 42. This is the M&P Shield 380 Auto EZ, and I've already done a video on this gun, kind of a light one. This is a very easy gun to manage. It does have a magazine that has a little ears like a 22 would, so loading your magazine is really easy to do. When I am in the summer, people are wearing lighter clothing. You know, we can talk about the merits of having a 380 and whether 380 is sufficient for self-defense. And I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't want to be on the business end of anything like this. This is my go-to carry if I want to carry lightweight. Maybe I'm going to go for a 10-mile walk or something like that, and it's 105 degrees outside. This will be the gun I carry. This actually is very lightweight. It is very accurate. I absolutely love this weapon. Its trigger pull is kind of like the other one. It's pretty crisp. You got a little bit of travel here, and then you hit up against that wall, and you're going to get a nice little snap. Now this does have on it a grip safety. Some people like them, some people don't. If you're a 1911 lover, you'll like this weapon. I don't have a problem with holding the weapon. It's about the right size for my hand. This is obviously bigger than a M&P bodyguard, but it's also a lot more accurate, a lot easier to control, and I absolutely love shooting this weapon. So this is my light weapon if I need to carry. Maybe I'm wearing slacks that day, and they're not as easy to carry as, say, my jeans might be. I might throw this weapon on. It's just easier to manage it if I'm wearing slacks that are kind of slick. I love this weapon. It is accurate. I haven't really done any modifications to this weapon at all, and you'll notice this looks suspiciously like my M.2, just a little bit smaller. So that's my lightweight carry. If I want to be in a situation where I'm going to carry a lightweight gun, I'm going to carry the Smith & Wesson 380 Auto EZ. This is also one of those weapons, when I saw it, I thought, man, I got to have that thing. That is the coolest thing ever. And I've absolutely loved it. I love shooting it. Good weapon. And then the last one, and again, I told you I had 4 that I particularly carry. This is the one that is really my EDC weapon. This is, in fact, an M&P Shield, single stack. And I want to talk about some of the modifications I've made. And again, it has been safety checked. Nothing in the magazine. Nothing flying out that you can see. So this gun is really my EDC gun. It's what I carry most often, and I do carry on a daily basis all the time. I've always got this weapon on me, even when I'm home. If I haven't switched over to M.2, this is probably the weapon you're going to see me carry. Now I want to talk about a couple of modifications. And what I'm doing, rather than buying a bunch of extra guns, is I'm taking the guns that I do have and then putting the modifications that I want on them. For example, my M.2, I have night sights and have a light. I'll probably be putting a different trigger on there, or at least a modification that'll take out some of the travel for that trigger. So the first modification that's apparent, I color coded it, and this was actually pretty easy to do. You can see the M&P logo right here, and if I turn the gun over, you can see that I have some nice bright lettering there. And in fact, believe it or not, I even went ahead and colorized the 9mm at the top. I just did this because I thought it was cool. It was something that was easy. Okay, I'll be honest. My wife is actually the one that did this for me. She's got a pretty steady hand, and I said, go for it. Let's make it look cool. I used a copper paint because the trigger's in copper, and one of the other modifications I made was I put in a Hive backplate for my slide, and that doesn't really add. It's really more aesthetics than anything else. I just thought it was cool. It cost me 14 bucks. Thank you, Hive, for that. I also have a mag extension. This allows this weapon to carry 10 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. I'm using a product called Mag Guts. There's several products out there, as you may know. One by Hive that will give you a little kind of a boot that sticks out a little ways on the gun. I like this because it still gives me 2 more rounds for this 8-round magazine, but it maybe adds a 1/4 inch maybe to the length of this magazine. Really just what you see right here is all it's adding to this magazine. So I actually get a full 10 rounds. I like that. I like to carry 10 rounds if I can. So now I can carry 10, 1 in the pipe. I also have on here a set of rubber grips. They're not Talon, and I don't have anything against Talon grips. I think they're wonderful. I just happen to find these on Amazon for about 10 bucks, and they work really well. They give me a really good purchase on the weapon, easy to hold. Just give me a little bit more purchase. This is a Shield. It's not a 2.0, so it doesn't have the stippling on the grip that the 2.0 has. So I was able to overcome that simply with a $10 set of grips. A couple other modifications I made. Obviously, you'll notice I have a different trigger on here. This particular trigger is put out by a company called Hive. What it does is it takes out all the travel. There's the amount of travel I have right there. And this gives me the dingus style safety rather than the hinge safety. And the pull is nice and crisp. I mean, it is just right there. If I come back and rack that again, you'll see that the travel on this thing is, in fact, let me rack it right now and bring it back. Right there. I mean, there's just nothing there. So this is a very fast trigger. I don't like all the trigger travel in a lot of the M&Ps, although my 380 Auto Z Easy is not bad. My M.2, I'm probably going to put a different trigger on that, or at least put in a modification where there's not as much travel. The wall on this for shooting is, I mean, you're right at the wall with really just very little travel here before your gun's ready to go. So I like that. There's also another modification I did, and to show that, I've actually got to go ahead and take this down real quickly. What I did is take my magazine out. That'll work a little better. What I did is I replaced the recoil spring and rod with a little bit different design. This is stainless. It's not that the one that came with the M&P Shield was not a good setup. I just like having a stainless steel rod, and you can change the tension of this to be a lighter recoil. I did not do that because I like the way the gun shoots, and I wanted it as close to factory, and I didn't want to mess with it. And so I did not change that, but I did go ahead and opt for a stainless steel guide rod and recoil spring. I did that with my Ruger SR9C. Was really glad I did. And so and as you know, that has to be right dead in the center, or your gun's not going to go back together. I did enjoy doing that. I think it was the right modification to make. Glad I made it. So I've done about 6 mods to this gun. I've done the mag extension, I've done the grip, I've done the back plate back here, I've done the trigger, I've done the color fill on the paint, and I've done the recoil spring. So this gun is good to go. The only 2 things I might do with this gun that are over and above what I've already done is I am thinking about putting in a more of a a better barrel, more of a competition type barrel, just to improve my accuracy a little bit. And I might put night sights on this. That's probably the only two of the modifications. I've thought about a compensator, and I just don't think this weapon is going to warrant a compensator. There are a couple out there. Compensator folks will like it. I could put a compensator on it, but I really don't want to add to the weight of the weapon or the length of the weapon. I like carrying this weapon. It's an easy weapon to carry. Again, this is my EDC carry. The other thing I want to mention before I shut this video down, and I know I've kind of gone long, but a couple other things I want to mention is find yourself a good holster system. I am using right now holsters from both White Hat and Vetter. This is my White Hat holster. It's a hybrid. It's a fairly small, low-profile hybrid. I actually have a video out there on the White Hat holsters. I love these things. They're very comfortable. I have a White Hat holster that fits all three of my weapons that I carry. I don't use one for my wheel gun. I use a straight leather holster for that. But for these weapons, I have White Hat holsters. I also have a Vetter holster if you want to go straight Kydex. There is no holster finer for straight Kydex than Vetter Holster Company. I love their stuff. Their fit and finishes is absolutely phenomenal. Excuse me. And the last thing I want to just say about carrying is make sure you've got a really high quality gun belt. I've been carrying again for about 17 years. I didn't catch on to gun belts till about a year ago, believe it or not, and it made all the difference. Having a good stiff gun belt is important. I carry a 1.5 inch gun belt, excuse me, and it has really helped me carry easily. The gun stays put, doesn't move around, and I absolutely love a good gun belt. So I would tell you to get a good holster, get one that's comfortable. You know, I've got a whole bucket of holsters just like everybody else does. And what I've figured out is that I really like three holster companies the best. I like White Hat holsters. I like the Galco. If I'm going to wear a double clip holster, Galco would make a very fine holster. So does Crossbreed. They're very similar. And then I like the Vetter if I want to go straight Kydex. So that's going to conclude this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've learned some things. Again, I really am a fan of Smith & Wesson. They make some really good weapons. This one's fairly heavily modified. If I had it to do all over again, I would do exactly this. There's a bunch of trigger companies out. Apex has some good stuff out. I chose Hive because it was affordable, and I simply like the weapon. I like the way it shoots. I like the way it handles, and it looks cool. So with that said, good luck, happy carrying, be safe everybody, and use your weapon for good, not evil.